So the same media that relentlessly calls me a fake news conspiracy theorist that relentlessly calls me a news conspiracy theorist just spent the last 2 years pushing what turned out to be the biggest fake news conspiracy theory since Saddam Hussein's non-existent weapons of mass destruction. Since Saddam Hussein's non-existent weapons of mass destruction. Who's the conspiracy theorist now? Who's the conspiracy theorist now? As Rolling Stone's Matt Taibbi writes, Russiagate is this generation's WMD. As Rolling Stone's Matt Taibbi writes, Russiagate is this generation's WMD. Writes, Russiagate is this generation's WMD. Writes, Russiagate is this generation's WMD. WMD damaged the media's reputation. WMD damaged the media's reputation. Russiagate may have destroyed it. The same media that abuses its platform the same media that abuses its platform to deplatform and silence others for fake news and misinformation. To deplatform and silence others for fake news and misinformation. For fake news and misinformation. When they generated and hyped the largest, most harmful piece of fake news when they generated and hyped the largest, most harmful piece of fake news and misinformation for 2 years solid. The largest, most harmful piece of fake news and misinformation for 2 years solid. And hyped the largest, most harmful piece of fake news and misinformation for 2 years solid. Facebook, Twitter and YouTube have all vowed to crack down on fake news YouTube have all vowed to crack down on fake news and conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theories. CNN, MSNBC, The New York Times, The Washington Post, and every late night The Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, The New York Times, The Washington Post, and every late night comedian all threw their weight behind a conspiracy theory that caused division across the country all threw their weight behind a conspiracy theory that caused division across the country and undermined democracy. 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 What punishment will they face? Will their channels be deleted? Will they be relegated in the algorithm? Will their channels be deleted? Will they be relegated in the algorithm? Don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath. Alex Jones was wiped out for saying something he apologized for. Yet the mass media pushed a narrative that destabilized the nation. Yet the mass media pushed a narrative that destabilized the nation. Yet the mass media pushed a narrative that destabilized the nation and could have sparked a war. Could have sparked a war. Destabilized the nation and could have sparked a war. Nothing will happen. War, and nothing will happen to them. And nothing will happen to them. None of them will be held accountable. For 2 years solid, every night they told us that the Trump administration was on the verge of collapse. Solid, every night they told us that the Trump administration was on the verge of collapse.
Breaking news.
Collapse.
Breaking news.
A bombshell
Today. Breaking news.
A bombshell
News.
A bombshell
Today is a turning point. Today was historically bad for President Trump. Today is a turning point. Today was historically bad for President Trump. for President Trump.
Today was a turning point.
Turning point.
We're at a turning point here.
The beginning of the end.
We're at a turning point here.
The beginning of the end for the Trump presidency.
Here.
The beginning of the end for the Trump presidency.
We have a
Trump president.
we have another bombshell.
Presidency. Trump presidency.
We have another bombshell.
Mike Pence might have to assume the office.
Bombshell.
Mike Pence might have to assume the office.
Bombshell.
Mike Pence might have to assume the office of the presidency.
Rumblings of the word impeachment.
Presidency.
Rumblings of the word impeachment.
Presidency.
Rumblings of the word impeachment.
Breaking news.
Another bombshell out of the White House.
Breaking news.
Another bombshell out of the White House.
Breaking news.
Another bombshell out of the White House.
I believe this is the beginning of the end. I believe this is the beginning of
White House.
I believe this is the beginning of the end.
I do too.
It's really the beginning of
I believe this is the beginning of the end.
I do too.
The end.
I do too.
it's really the beginning of the end.
He may be feeling the walls.
It's really the beginning of the end.
He may be feeling the walls closing in on him.
And
He may be feeling the walls closing in on him.
All the walls closing in on him.
The walls closing in on him.
Breaking news, a new bombshell.
One astrologer said. One astrologer says this means the beginning of the end for President Donald Trump. One astrologer says this means the beginning of the end for President Donald Trump. President Donald Trump.
Trump will resign.
Trump.
Trump will resign.
Trump is going to resign.
Trump. Donald Trump.
Trump will resign.
Trump is going to resign.
Is this the tipping point? I know we've said it.
Donald Trump.
Trump will resign.
Trump is going to resign.
Is this
Resign.
the tipping point?
Going to resign.
Is this the tipping point? I know we've said it over and over.
You think this is a tip?
I know we've said it over and over
You think this is a tipping point?
and over. and over
You think this is a tipping point?
and over and over
This is a tipping point.
and over and over.
Breaking news, President Trump off the rails. Breaking news. News, President Trump off the rails.
Over.
Breaking news, President Trump off the rails. The rails.
It was the beginning of the end today.
The beginning of the end.
Breaking news tonight, new bombshell.
This is the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The walls are closing in. The walls closing in.
The wall's closing in.
For 2 years,
Closing in.
The wall's closing in. Closing in.
for 2 years,
Closing in.
for two
Closing in.
For 2 years solid, they breathlessly told us that the president had conspired with For 2 years solid, they breathlessly told us that the told us that the president had conspired with a hostile nation to steal an election. Conspired with a hostile nation to steal an election.
Russia. Russia, Vladimir Putin, Russia, 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 Russia. Russia. Russia, Vladimir Putin, Russia, 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 Russia hates Russia, 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 Putin, Russia's Russia, 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 Russian, Russia, Russia, Moscow, Moscow, Russia, 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 Moscow, Moscow, Russia, Russian pro Russia, Moscow, Moscow, Russia, Russia, Moscow, Moscow, Russia, Russian pro-Russian, Russian, Russia, Russian, 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 the Russians, Russian, 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 Russians, Russians, Russian, Russians, Russian, 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 Russia, Russian, 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 Moscow, Russian, Russian, Russia, Putin, Russian, 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 Russian. Russian, Russia, Putin, Russian, 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 Russian against us. Russians, the Russians rush against the U.S. The Russians rush, Russian, Russian, Moscow, Russian, Russian, Russia, Putin, Russian, 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 Russian against us. Russian rush against us. Russians. The Russians rush against the U.S. The Russians Russian government scheme. The Russians, Vladimir Putin, Russia. Vladimir Putin, Russia. Putin and Russia. Russia, Moscow, Russia. Russia. The Russians. Russian, Russia. Putin, Russia. Russian.
And exactly as I said,
Russia.
And exactly as I said over 2 years ago, it all turned out to be complete bunk. And exactly as I said over 2 years ago, it all 2 years ago. It all turned out to be complete bunk. It all turned out to be complete bunk. 40 FBI agents, 2,800 subpoenas, 2,800 subpoenas, 5,800 subpoenas, so the same media
Russia.
And exactly as I said, over 2 years, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 witnesses, 500 search warrants, 230 community, 40 FBI agents, 2,800 subpoenas, 2,800 subpoenas, 2,800 subpoenas, 500, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 witnesses, 500 search warrants, 200 subpoenas, 500 witnesses, 500 search warrants, search warrants, 230 communications search warrants, 230 communications, 500 search warrants, 230 communications, 500 search warrants, 230 search warrants, 230 communications records, 50 phone taps, 230 communications records, 50 phone communications records, 50 phone communications records, 50 phone taps, records, 50 phone taps, 13 foreign government intel requests. Phone taps 13 foreign government intel requests. Phone taps 13 foreign government intel requests. Taps 13 foreign government intel requests. No requests. No collusion. No evidence of no collusion. No evidence of obstruction. No evidence of obstruction. The media lied to you. The media lied to you. Again and again and again. Again and again and again. They peddled the biggest fake news hoax in a generation. They peddled the biggest fake news hoax in a generation, while pointing their fingers at people like me, demanding we be silenced for fake news. News. The people screaming about Trump. Working for Russia are the same people demanding social media censor misinformation. Stop. Censor misinformation. Stop listening to these people. If you're an MSNBC, stop listening to these people. If you're an MSNBC viewer or reader of liberal sites on the internet, to these people. If you're an MSNBC viewer or reader of liberal sites on the internet, you were fed a steady stream of conspiratorial bullshit. That completely warped your view of the world, all while they purposely excluded any while they purposely excluded anyone who questioned their fraud and profited off of your fears. Fraud profited off of your fears. Many of them are so delusional of your fears. Many of them are so delusional. That even after the Mueller report completely debunked their conspiracy theory. Their conspiracy theory. Even after being totally humiliated. They're still claiming there was Russian collusion. Theory. Even after being totally humiliated, they're still claiming there was Russian collusion. There was Russian collusion. I'm not owned. I'm not owned. I'm not owned. I continue to insist as I slowly shrink. To insist as I slowly shrink and transform into a corn cob. Russian collusion conspiracy theorists are will only be elevated. No one. Russian collusion conspiracy theorists. Russian collusion conspiracy theorists are the flat earthers of politics. are the flat earthers of politics. They won't of politics. They won't apologise. They won't reflect on their hysteria. They won't apologise. They won't reflect on their hysteria. Their hysteria will only be elevated. Their hysteria will only be elevated. No one will be fired. No one will be disciplined. No elevated. No one will be fired. Be fired. No one will be disciplined. Are you ever going to have a single moment of self-awareness? Are you ever going to have a single moment of self-awareness? Are you ever going to stop being partisan hacks? Being partisan hacks. Are you ever going to stop being partisan hacks? Are you ever going to realise the reason you lost the election? Are you ever going to realise the reason you lost the election was wasn't Russian Facebook ads or Twitter bots. It wasn't Russian Facebook ads or Twitter bots. It was because you fielded an unpopular candidate who embodied a neoliberal wasn't Russian Facebook ads or Twitter bots. It was because you election. Wasn't Russian Facebook ads or Twitter bots. It was because you fielded an unpopular candidate. It was because you fielded an unpopular candidate who embodied a Twitter bots. It was because you fielded an unpopular candidate who embodied a neoliberal elitist agenda. Who embodied a neoliberal elitist agenda that the entire world is now rejecting. Agenda that the entire world is now rejecting. And after having spent the last 2 years hyping the importance and rejecting, and after having spent the last 2 years hyping the importance and credibility of the Mueller report, the last 2 years hyping the importance and credibility of years hyping the importance and credibility of the Mueller report. The Mueller report. They're now telling everyone to disregard the Mueller report. Report. They're now telling everyone to disregard the Mueller report.
I don't care what's in that report.
This is like the Mueller report.
I don't care what's in that report. I don't care.
Report.
I don't care what's in that report.
This is like Brexit all over again. What do you This is like Brexit all over again. What do you want to do? Keep having investigation after investigation and what do you want to do? Keep What do you want to do? Keep having investigation What do you want to do? Keep having investigation after investigation and investigation until you get the result you want? The only way that until you get the result you want. You want. The only way the conspiracy theory can survive you want. The only way the conspiracy theory can survive is by metastasizing. The only way the conspiracy theory can survive is by metastasizing into an even bigger conspiracy. Is by metastasizing into an even bigger conspiracy. Survive is by metastasizing into an even bigger conspiracy. Now Mueller himself was part of the conspiracy. Now Mueller himself was part of the conspiracy. Hey Democrats, maybe now drop the conspiracy theory. Hey Democrats, maybe now drop the conspiracy theories. Maybe drop demonizing half of the American population. Maybe now drop the conspiracy theories. Maybe drop demonizing half of the American population. Maybe drop demonizing half of the American population. Maybe drop the relentless, frothing hysteria maybe drop the relentless, frothing hysteria and the endless contrived moral panic. And the endless contrived moral panics. Maybe now, panics. Maybe now, I don't know. Panics. Maybe now, I don't know. Become an actual political party with policies that actually resonate with the American people. With policies that actually resonate with the American people. Just an idea, hey me. people just an idea. Hey media, instead of abusing your platforms to an idea, hey media, hey media, instead of abusing your platforms to silence your competition instead of abusing your platforms to silence your competition and destabilize democracy, maybe go back to doing actual non-partisan maybe go back to doing actual non-partisan, unbiased journalism. Maybe go back to doing actual non-partisan, unbiased journalism. Actual non-partisan, unbiased journalism. Doing actual non-partisan, unbiased journalism. Just an idea. Just an idea.